Spinal mobility, and in this case rotational spinal mobility, is one of the core fundamentals that are sadly way too neglected when it comes to our mobility work. Most people, when they work on their spinal mobility, are working on extension and flexion, but are far too lenient when it comes to adding rotational spinal mobility. And that can become a problem because it's not only important for people who practice any sport where we require rotational mobility, like golfing, swimming, soccer, or anything where we use our upper body and torso to build energy through rotation, but also for people's day-to-day lives. And in general, you'll see most people struggling more with thoracic mobility, the upper back part, way more than you see them struggle with lumbar mobility, which is another thing we're going to be keeping an eye on today. So to keep your spine healthy, loose and limber and keep you from getting injured, especially the older you become, we will go through some of the more easily replicable, however very effective spinal rotational exercises. So if you're ready, let's have some fun. Now, to make things a little bit easier and more beginner friendly, we'll start in a quadrupedal position, and we're gonna bring one hand right here behind our head and start turning outwards into an external rotation, and then turning inwards, bringing our right elbow to our left elbow, and if we can, we will cross over, increasing our range of motion as much as we can and opening up laterally as much as we can. I would also advise to go through these movements in a more slowed down and controlled fashion to help you activate those specific areas in a safer way, and over time you can maybe start adding some speed, like explosively opening up and slowly closing down. Or of course you can do it the other way around, slowly opening up, adding as much thoracic rotation as you can, and explosively closing down, working on our core strength, just as we are working on our thoracic rotation. Now, of course, the combination of static as well as dynamic exercises together is pretty much the best thing you can do when it comes to working on your mobility. In this case, we will start and thread our left arm through to the right side, bringing our shoulder and our hand in complete contact with the ground. You may have to move forward with your hips, which is absolutely no problem. Once you are in full contact here, we are once again gonna start opening up with our right arm as far as we can, lengthening our anterior delts, our biceps insertions, as well as our pecs. And once we are here, now we can start pushing our hips back, adding some flexion in our lumbar spine while still having this nice rotation, mostly in our thoracic spine. I would advise holding for 20 to 30 seconds statically before you switch it up. And of course, you have to do both sides. Right arm, thread it through, bring it into complete contact with the ground, open up your left arm sideways, and then start pushing your hips backwards, lengthening your spinal erectors while still keeping that rotational mobility going. Repeat for another 2 or 3 rounds. This one feels absolutely amazing at opening up our chest and in turn helping us increase our range of motion when it comes to this rotational flexibility. Now, before we get ready to fully stand up, we're gonna switch into a lunging starting position, and we're gonna use that to our advantage. Left foot in the front means right hand on the ground, and now we can use our arm to push ourselves deeper and deeper into a thoracic and the tiniest bit of lumbar rotation. This one we can hold statically once more, opening up our obliques and our spinal erectors. And once we're done on one side, we're gonna just switch it up, bringing the left hand down to the ground and opening with our right arm. This one, while it is an amazing static exercise, I enjoy it in a dynamic way as well, moving from one side to the other, opening up and releasing all the tension that we're holding in our lower and mid back region while lengthening our sides, and of course adding the tiniest bit of shoulder mobility. Now, to advance this exercise to the next level, we can move into a pyramid starting position with both legs completely extended and staggered. If you can keep both feet completely flat on the ground, that is absolutely amazing. We're also working the tiniest bit on our posterior chain flexibility, especially in our hamstrings in the front, as well as our calves in the back. From here, all we need to do is start hinging in our back. We're gonna try and keep it as neutral as possible, meaning if your back is starting to go into spinal flexion, that means you're already too far down and maybe you have to get up a little bit higher. Start out in this position and then we're gonna switch between triangle and reverse triangle poses, meaning the right hand on the ground at foot height, and once again we're gonna open up sideways and then switch it up, open up into a classic triangle pose, as it is called in yoga, switching left side to right side, working between dynamic movements, which we're just gonna hold for a half a second, or static stretches, which we're gonna hold for 20 to 30 seconds. You can hold up here, you can even hold up here. The most important thing though is that your legs are extended and you're adding as much rotation in your upper body as you can. Over time, you will be able to grab down all the way here and switch it up at your own convenience. Now, moving us to something a little bit more advanced, we have a new starting position. We're gonna grab ourselves any sort of elevation we can use for our head, just so we are not hanging like so. To keep our back from arching in our lumbar spine, what we want to do is pull our knees in, which is going to start pushing our lower spine into the tiniest bit of flexion. This is going to help us avoid working too much on our lumbar rotation and focusing more on our thoracic rotation. We're also going to need any sort of weight. And before you use that weight, we will just go through this movement once, just so you know how it feels. Left arm in complete contact with the ground and right hand on top of our left hand. From here, we're going to try and grab farther and farther forward as much as we can, keeping our hand in complete contact with the ground, our legs tucked, and we want to go through the longest rotation we can move through while keeping our hand in complete contact with the ground and our arm as extended as possible. If you can go through a complete rotation all the way behind your butt and all the way up back to your hand again, then you are pretty flexible and you can start adding more and more weight. We're going to replicate the same movement, this time, however, requiring a little bit more strength and being forced into more and more of a stretch through the weight pulling us down. Be sure to keep your legs tucked in while you're going through this complete rotation, opening up your chest and shoulder musculature, trying to keep this movement as long as possible, lengthening our shoulders and our arms while going through this entire movement. Here I'm pulling down, here I'm pulling sideways, over here I am pulling all the way up, and right here I'm pulling forward our shoulder blades as far apart as possible. And this is one of the exercises that feel absolutely amazing when replicating them. Opening up our chest, our anterior delts, our biceps, our obliques, and working on that rotation in our thoracic spine, while also having the tiniest bit added core strength, shoulder strength, and arm strength, which is an amazing bonus to have when we're working on our flexibility. It's also very important to keep in mind that the further you advance when it comes to your flexibility and being safer in those movements, the more you can use the weight to assist you into pulling you deeper and deeper into passive stretches, for instance. If we replicate our starting position that we had with this static stretch before, we can start using weights with the other arm that helps us pull us deeper and deeper and deeper into this amazing stretch. Now we have a lot more lengthening in our pecs as well as our delts, and in our arm musculature we have far more rotation in our thoracic spine. And if we are still actively pushing our hips back towards our feet, we're gonna minimize the rotation we have in our lumbar spine. Not only that, but if the static exercises feel great when stretching, those passive stretches feel even better. I know this is a subjective opinion, but I for one enjoy the feeling of basically being pulled apart and feeling every single muscle and sinew being stretched out. Just be sure to never go over your pain threshold, and a good rule of thumb is if you're having discomfort, that is totally acceptable, that is totally fine, you're probably doing everything right. However, if you are having pain, chances are you are overdoing it and you need to reduce your range of motion. Now for our final exercise, we will go through a movement that is gonna build total body mobility with a higher focus on spinal rotation. That would be the pseudo bridge or the one-sided pseudo bridge. Starting out in a lateral deep squat position or the end range motion of a Cossack squat, where we move laterally all the way down, all the way up, bringing our hand behind our extended leg, keeping half a meter apart between the knee and the hand, and raising from here. Now we're basically lengthening our entire right side, starting at our toes, moving up our quads and hip flexors, opening up our obliques and getting into this spinal rotation. Not only is this an amazing position for a stretch, but also for full body coordination as well as strength. And if you've seen our video from 2 days ago, it is also one of the exercises we use to build core strength as well. Now, of course, we want to switch sides by moving once again laterally, bring our hand behind our extended leg and pushing up once more with as much rotation in our spine as we can handle without having any pain. Try and keep both arms fully lengthened, and we're actively pulling our right arm towards the ground while pushing our hips up to arch as much as we can. And it feels absolutely amazing, stretching out the right side of my body, the entire right side with one single move. Now, with that said, you basically have a complete spinal rotation routine you can work on. Start with the easier exercises, move your way up, start with the lowest weight, move your way up, and go through progressive overload, just like you would do with any other fitness goal. When it comes to the dynamic exercises, I would go for 60 seconds per round and 2 rounds. And for the static exercises, 30 seconds of static holds and 2 to 3 rounds. If you put all of this together, if you can do half of these exercises, you already have a pretty good routine. If you can do all of them, that is even better. And once or twice a week is more than enough to keep your spine healthy, limber, loose, and strong, and help you reduce your risk of injury. And with that said, once again, that's all the time I have left for you today. However, if you like the video and subscribe, and please check out other videos on this channel, because we literally have new ones every single day. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Captain Cairo, peace out.